Sup bro? Heartseeker's back again for another season with a bit of a refresh and more speed than ever before. Not only is it faster, but it's got some serious style points with Shadow Clone playing a huge role in this setup, as it actually does damage for once. And yes, I'm serious, it really does do damage. But no, really. Anyways, we build this setup using close quarters combat instead of victimize, so think of my Season 5 Heartseeker setup. This means we do have to play a little closer up and dance around the mobs because, well, victimize just sucks this season, and the witch powers don't really do much for it. This doesn't mean that we're just taking close quarters combat as a fallback. This key passive actually packs a punch, and once you get your hands on this build, you'll understand why this simple to play build is just so much fun to zoom around with tons of arrows shooting around at everything. It's no rain of arrows in terms of power, but it's solid, being able to speed through pit tier 95s with decent gear. If you want a super speedy build that's great at speed farming, but wanted something a little stronger for leveling glyphs and XP farming, then Dance of Knives, Heartseeker might just be your thing. For the Heartseeker fans, this is a must try. Alright, so let's talk about the skills real quick. Of course, we take Heartseeker, go all the way down to primary Heartseeker because we want to hit as often as possible to be able to clear pretty well. Then we come down here, take the normal stuff as usual, sturdy for damage reduction and a little bit of points into Siphony Strikes or some heal. You'll have the barrier up most of the time, so that really isn't too necessary here. I take Flurry for the movement. People keep asking me about this all the time, but it's basically a no cooldown movement that also heals you. So I just like zipping around with Flurry, but you don't have to take Flurry. You can take any other movement skill you would like, Shadow Step or Dash. The thing to remember is you do need a melee skill to be able to proc close quarters combat. So it's gonna have to be one of those three, and you have to hit the mob to be able to make sure you keep that buff up. So here, like I said, I chose Flurry, but you can pretty much do whatever you would like. We take Caltrops because that's just a normal buff for almost every build that we use in the game for Rogue. We take the normal 4 passive buffs here: Weapon Mastery, Unstable Elixirs, Trick Attacks, Ballistra, and we come here and also take the passive buffs here: Malice and Exploit. And then we take Smoke Grenade to enhance Smoke Grenade for the usual, more damage. Dark Shroud all the way up into Enhanced Dark Shroud for movement speed and defense. We come down and we take Alchemical Advantage, so therefore we can pretty much, attack faster and hit, better breakpoints. Cold Imbuement for more damage. Frigid Finesse for more damage with Cold Imbuement. And come down here, take Alchemist Fortune to be able to make sure that we proc things such as our Shadow Grasp a little bit more often and other things, other effects. Obviously, Shadow Clone here. Make sure we do get to rank 5. It is actually pretty important. And then, of course, we take all the way to Supreme Shadow Clone. Shadow Clone is actually doing a lot more damage in this build than most people would think. So Shadow Clone is almost pretty much the star here, even though you're doing pretty good damage, but the Shadow Clone is really kind of like mostly carrying here. Then we come down to Aftermath and we take all into Dawn. We max this out, so therefore our Shadow Clone damage can deal a bit more damage. Then we come down to Second Wind. We max this out. And for Innervation, basically you're going to have one roll on your gear for Innervation on one of your rings. It's pretty much all you really need. As long as you're hitting something, you're going to be able to get your energy back as long as you're running Starless Skies. If you're not running Starless Skies, then of course you want to put 3 points into here, max this out. I'd probably remove it from Alchemist Fortune to put it here, so therefore you can get your energy back, and in case you do not have a Starless Skies to be able to run this in this build. And then for our key passive, we take Close Quarters Combat. I know that for the longest for Heartseeker, we've been doing mainly Victimize, and then we kind of had like a semi-range Heartseeker back in Season 5 and things. But here, honestly, Victimize just sucks. Just gonna downright state it. It sucks. If you want to try to play a range Heartseeker, it's going to be quite a bit difficult to do this particular patch because most of the witch powers don't really do much with Victimize. Close quarters combat is the way to go. It's very fluid. It feels good. I am a bow rogue. I get it, but man, you can dance around the enemies. Close quarters combat is just quite a bit of damage. This is what you're going to want to take. For gearing real quick, basically Kyle the Nameless, best in slot. You can go air perdition, but trick attacks is just way too strong. It's still busted, it's still broken. Mentioned this in the previous video. Coming down to Shroud of False Death, get one. Also best in slot. If you don't have it, regular chest with Dark Shroud and ways to cap your resistances and armor, do that. Come down here, and this is kind of the start of the show. I was actually not keen on actually using these gloves, but I remember when I was testing it on live stream, I said I was going to try 4 different gloves. I was going to do a regular glove, Fist of Fate, Pain Gorgers, and Shadow Grass, and see which one ended up being the best. And ironically enough, the Shadow Grass finally has a place in a build, and it's going to be in this Heartseeker build. So make sure you want to try to maximize the marksman and cutthroat skills here. Try to get a pretty good high unique affixer as well, because you want the clone out as much as you possibly can. It actually does pretty decent damage. So you have a clone and you have another clone shooting pretty often at the same time. It's actually quite wild how many Heartseekers you're actually getting out with this. So this is best in slot. If you don't have it, Pain Gorges is the next best in slots, with the same ordeal of making sure to maximize your basic attack ranks. And with Siphoning Aura, which I'll talk about later, you can actually permanently proc Pain Gorges. So you'll have the curse mark up all the time, so you'll be able to get AoE. It's actually quite nice. It's actually pretty close to Grasp of Shadows in terms of a glove. So kind of either or there. It's up to you. Again, I choose Grasp of Shadows. We're coming down to the pants. Mostly normal stuff. Try to cap if you can. Dex. I got resistances here because I needed it. Please make sure to try to get Heartseeker rings, GA Heartseeker if you can, barrier generation, total armor. And for the aspect, you want to go for frostbitten like usual. Going down to the boots, we take Dex. I have armor here to try to cap. Movement speed. Try to get chance to stun, because we really don't have any other way to really provide a stun. This is mainly for being able to stagger a little bit faster, so having a utility chance to stun is actually quite nice. And then of course you temper movement speed, and then you take concussive strikes for the boost there. Going to the weapon here, I know you see a crossbow. I just like the sound of the crossbow, and this was one of my better crossbows to use for the build. Generally speaking, you're probably going to want to do a bow. You'll see that in the planner, the bow in the planner. Either or works, doesn't matter. It's the same amount of damage at the end of the day. You either hit harder or you shoot faster. It's whatever you choose to want to do, right? So here, as you see, GA on Dex if you can. Roll some critical damage if you would like. Temper close damage and Heartseeker projectiles here. And of course, Moonrise for your big weapon, okay? On to the dagger. We do basically the same thing. You want the Dex, critical strike damage. Damage to close enemies is important. And for the last one, chance for Shadow Clone to deal double damage. Now this is actually pretty important, because it's the only role that we can be able to take for Shadow Clone to deal double damage. And when the proxy is actually quite nice. So if you masterwork the close damage or the Shadow Clone to deal double damage, I would honestly go with the Shadow Clone to deal double damage for the actual temper. But as you see, I kind of got unlucky. I ran out of masterwork mass, so just kept it as it was. Chose to go with cold clip here because the build, I mean, it functions without it, but you're going to really want cold clip to make everything run smooth and together. Shard of Varathiel, get one. GA the basic attack speed. If you get on basic attacks or basic skills, that's fine. Try to get a pretty decent amount of the unique affix here, because it actually does, you are dealing damage here with this, so it's quite important. Coming to the ring, you want to do Dex, critical strike damage, and actually I can't believe I actually did not roll the fire resistance off of this ring. I actually forgot to do that, so it's just there. All right, well, attack speed, maximum health, whatever you want to put there is fine. If you're capped, then just go with health. Then damage to close enemies, of course, and then Shadow Clone cooldown reduction, because you want to try to get that off as much as possible for your no witness bonus for your legendary node, as I'm going to talk about when we get to Paragon. Then you want to, for the aspect, I like Behemoth here. It's damage for you, your clone, and also the additional ranks, so pretty nice to have. Going to Starless Skies, Just makes it easier to be able to manage your energy. The attack speed is really, really nice here. The lucky hit chance is actually pretty useful to help proc the Shadow Grasp here. So Starless Skies is best in slot. If you don't have a regular ring, it's fine. You can go with the For Her aspect. Actually, no, don't do that. Go with Conceited. Conceited is actually more consistent. If you just have a regular ring. If you do have a regular ring, go with Innervation Temper as well, just so therefore you can keep up your energy, because it's going to be a little difficult without the Starless Skies here. But can be done, but just a little difficult. Then of course for the amulet, we have Dex percent, Frigid Finesse, Malice. This is pretty much the best 3 stats you can pretty much get for your amulet. Generally speaking, you want the GA to Frigid Finesse if you can. It's very strong. Or the GA to Dex is probably the best case scenario too for what you're doing with your occult gems. But either works. Roll close damage for tempers. Also innervation here too, to again help you sustain your energy for your Heartseekers. When it comes to gems, emeralds for Dex, as you see, I still don't have enough stuff to be able to get max gems, so I'm just rolling with pleb gems, as you see. For runes, you will want to go with Cervex. Cervex actually gives you the ranks to your ultimate, which is very powerful, and also ranks to your basic attack skills, so also makes you and your clone pretty powerful there. And then for the other runes, you want to go with Pak-Om. This is kind of standard. Get the 15% movement speed as well as damage. Pretty nice. And then you want to put the ultimate gems basically in both of these slots, because you will not be able to cap your no witness power unless you do so. So you definitely want to put the ultimate gems in these 2 slots. For your specialization, I forgot to talk about this in the Rain of Veils video. You want to go preparation, so therefore you can spend energy to be able to use your Shadow Clone quite often. Keep it up as often as you possibly can. So, and that's gearing. So Paragon Board is pretty straightforward. Let's talk about the glyphs. It's easier to look at it in the planner as always, but let's go over the glyphs real quick. You're gonna go with Canny, Headhunter, Turf, Control, and Devious, with Turf being your most important glyph because that is the one that scales with your key passive. So you want to take that and max that out first. Okay, so we have a pretty interesting board here. It's probably the coolest looking board I've ever done. So Control on the first board, then we come and take the no witness board here, and we put in our Turf glyph. It has the most strength, so that's why we put Turf on this board. We come in and we take the no witness legendary power. As you can see, it's maxed out at 60 because of what I said a little bit earlier in this video. Moving up forward to take the Tricks of the Trade board. So we put Devious here for the Tricks of the Trade, and we path out to take Tricks of the Trade legendary node. As long as you use any sort of melee and or range marksman skills, you'll practice, and since you're doing both all the time, this is up permanently, no problems, right? You do want to come and take this Brawler. Brawler is very important because it is close damage, and close damage scales with our close quarters combat key passive. So you want to do that. Path out, continue to go up, as you see, to Cheap Shot. So this is our Cheap Shot board. We're going to put Headhunter here and path out to take Cheap Shot legendary node. We're always close, so this is always active. We continue to go up to our final board, to Eldritch Bounty. So we come here, we take Canny in the slot, and we rock it off all the way to Eldritch Bounty legendary node for the 30%, because we are constantly using our cold clip, therefore we're constantly proccing said legendary node. So it's pretty much your Paragon board. It's pretty much straightforward, and it's literally straight up. So that's Paragon. For Mercenaries, real quick, we literally take, we're here as per almost every build that we're using. We come all the way down and we take Inspiration, so just for the more damage. Most of this is pretty much like self-explanatory here. For your reinforcement, I highly recommend Rihanna, just because she has a knockdown Earthbreaker, she can continue to knock down something in the area. And since we don't really have a knockdown at all in this particular setup, it's very crucial that she does that, because with the Malice passive, basically it's 24% increased damage to vulnerable enemies and 24% increased damage to knockdown enemies. So these are two separate multipliers, and you want both of them. So she is a key component to making sure that you have the knockdown to be able to proc both Malice effects. So you become really strong, and you definitely feel it when she does the thing. And that's Mercenaries. All right, so quickly, wish powers. Gonna keep this short. Soul Harvest almost goes in almost most builds. You're proccing a bunch of cooldowns in their face anyways. Extra damage, super easy peasy. Aura of Siphoning, you basically trigger poison, which is how you're getting your attack speed from alchemical advantage here. So you definitely want that aura there. Going back to the tree here, aura specialization. 35% increased critical strike damage to enemies within your aura. That is multiplicative. I know you see it as a plus sign, but it's multiplicative. You definitely want that because, trick attacks, OP scaling. Coming to Purging Touch. I know this seems really weird because it's like, how we're going to proc Purging Touch this time. Well, we're still going to be using Voice of the Stars, Occult Gem, which I will talk about in a second. And so all of your ultimate damage, all your ultimate skills, which is, Shadow Clone, is going to be getting all of this extra damage from Purging Touch. So on to the next one. This is Grow. And this is basically just a buff to your Shadow Clone, as well as the Grasp of Shadow as well. So these two that are taken here are basically to buff your clone. There really isn't much support for basic skill stuff when it comes to the wish powers, so we just kind of take what we can to be able to buff the clone, since the clone is actually dealing damage to you as well. So, and then we just take Vengeful Spirit. All right, so for occult gems, one of the most important ones to take is going to be Voice of the Stars, because again, there's not much support for basic attack skills, so you want to buff your ultimate as much as you possibly can. And so with Voice of the Stars and your aura, you're going to always have that up, and your ultimate becomes an Eldritch power. And since it becomes an Eldritch power, it procs the, Purging Touch thing, making, that work as an effect for your Shadow Clone, making your Shadow Clone pretty beefy, pretty strong. Outside of that, you want to take Wicked Pact, because that is going to buff your Eldritch Witch powers, which means it's going to buff your ultimate skill, your Shadow Clone. And then the next one, since you do have 3 growth and decay skills, Fiend of the Bog would be a very good choice to make. Now, that's probably more of an in-game option, because it's going to take a lot of Forgotten Rot to be able to get 2 legendary occult gems into this build. So if you don't have this, and you're just struggling to kind of get the Voice of the Stars, a good placeholder would be Totaling's Wish. Now, this buff Soul Harvest is more so the duration of Soul Harvest, but what Totaling's Wish really does that helps you out is that it buffs growth. It makes your summons deal extra damage, so you kind of want to put that occult gem there. And growth is actually pretty interesting, because it actually makes your Shadow Clones grow, like they get beefy. It's actually quite cool to watch. So those are pretty much your occult gems and the substitutes, and that's it. All right, so let's talk about rotation real quick. It is super simple. Honestly, it's really simple. Only thing you really need to make sure is to Flurry, Dash, or Shadow Step, whichever one you chose to do, to proc your first part of Close Quarters Combat buff, and then you just basically spam Heartseeker, and that's pretty much it, right? So you just come in, pop in, get close, and spam Heartseeker, and that is it. Now, don't forget to activate your Shadow Clone and Dark Shroud to make sure you stay alive and get all this juicy stuff that's coming on, as you see. And then when things get a little tough, you can just throw a Smoke Grenade and Cow Traps, and just rinse and repeat. Hold down until stuff is dead. And that's it. That's all I have to say about the skill rotation. One thing I do want to talk about, because I do want to make people's lives a little bit easier when it comes to stutter step and etc. Something I like to do that I've done kind of in the recent is I remap my Heartseeker, basically what my left click would be, to shift. And then what I did past that is that now my left click is mapped to forced move. So now my Heartseeker is shift. My left click is force move. If I hold down both of them at the same time in one direction, I just stutter step forward. So I'm always scooting, shooting all the time, doing my thing. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to continue to keep moving, and you're dancing around the mob, so you're not standing still in front of their face per se, as you see in the gameplay part of the video in the start. You're actually just moving around them, so you're actually not getting hit as much as you think you are, because you're constantly just kind of trying to find somewhere to move. Now, generally speaking, I will have better energy resource here, but sometimes the Heartseekers actually hit the wall and don't ricochet back, and therefore I lose my energy. But anyways, point being is that, like, if you just literally hold down shift and left click with the thing I told you to do, you will always stutter step in the direction you want to go, and you're dancing around the mobs, and it's quite fun to do it that way. So you don't have to do it that way, just a little tidbit to maybe help you kind of with your movement with a build like this. But oh, almost forgot. And you want to use Elixir of Advantage, because more attack speed, more likely hit chance. Pretty much the best elixir there is. All right, I'm done for real this time. And this is Heartseeker. Hope you guys enjoyed. Super fast, super awesome build to play. It's not the greatest pusher, and that's okay. Doesn't necessarily have to be. But I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'll probably be doing this for most of my speed farming needs around the town, because it's just that fluid to play and a lot of fun to play. Off to making my next build, and then very soon my next video guide. And as always, till next time.